Hey everybody, it's Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And Penelope Cruz wasn't the one in Hitman's Bodyguard, it was Selma Hayek. Contrary to what Devin thinks. You can IMDb it later if that makes you feel better.
That's alright. Wait a minute. That's what I know her from.
Selma Hayek?
Yeah.
I don't know what I know her from.
I know what I know her from.
What's she in?
She's the mom of the other kids in Spy Kids.
Like, you talking about the one that went on to play Lily in Hannah Montana?
Yeah. Her mom. Remember Spy Kids 3? She was like in the computer center where they launched the game from.
Oh!
That's her.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm definitely sure.
Let's look that up after.
Welcome to the Oddcast.
Great cold opening.
Yeah. And title logo.
Yeah.
That we never use for anything.
I should. Facebook
I know, but it's not in the videos. I should make a better version of it if ever I'm going to want to use it.
You can make an intro sequence.
It's very low res. That would require animation.
No, you can just make it appear and then disappear.
Intro sequence. But. Iris in, iris out. Episode 829, BTV Revenge, and what's the other episode?
Crash Course.
Oh, yeah, I should say first episode numbers. Sorry, I still have the old ones here wrong. As JB pointed out, the episode numbers we've been using for this album are actually one off, which AIOO Wiki isn't even updated with this yet. I'm not sure they know about it.
Then you update it.
Because...
you can update things.
Not on that level. I don't know how to.
Oh, never mind.
Because I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to explain the reason why. The point is, at the end of this year, all the episodes for this need to be shifted forward by one, and I'm sure that will be reflected by the time the end of the year comes. So this is actually even episodes now and odd numbers, which is very annoying because everything's shifted forward by one.
I'm looking forward at your notes about...
I'm really irked by it. So, yeah. Sorry. Turn that off. Yes, and quit. Yeah, so I'm irked by that, but I'm updating the YouTube titles now. I knew it on the last episode we filmed, but I forgot to actually say it in the thing. So the point is, this is actually episode 830, allegedly, according to JB. I'll change the titles back if it turns out that's incorrect in terms of the numbering. But since he works for Focus, I'm inclined to trust him about it.
Anyway.
Point is, episode 830, BTV Revenge, written by Sam Suxieri and Aaron Chapman. Qu'est-ce qui se passe?
So, in this episode, we have, since it's BTV, we have like a couple things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have a lot to say on everything in this episode.
Okay, good. I don't have a lot, so.
Yeah, I have things to nip.
What are the segments of this episode, Victoria?
So there's a couple. The overall, kind of bridging thing that we've got going on with the host, this time the host is Connie, she's with Wombat Man, who's voiced by Jess, doing an impersonation of Adam
West,
which I don't know if this was written right after Adam West passed away.
He didn't die too super long ago,
yeah,
right?
that's why I'm not completely sure. So it's
probably before.
I'm thinking it was written before, but
probably
there's a small chance if it was written after, then this could be slightly an homage to him instead of being a different Batman voice, like him specifically. That's the only reason why I think
I'm on Batman.
Yeah. Jess could do that voice. He can do every voice. He can do
anything. Anyone can do Christian Bale Batman.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a thing. And there's this, the Riddler, or this version of the Riddler, comes after him.
He's the puzzler.
Yeah, he has math problems, and I'm like, yeah, that's scary.
Actually. Okay, I just want to say, because people in media always you get a simple word problem. People are like, it's so hard to figure out. So
He said it too fast. I needed it written down.
Well, yeah, it was fast. I'll grant you, but I
couldn't figure out anything he said.
I really liked all of the shade that they threw at Batman in general, but I really especially like, one, the fact that the puzzler throws out a riddle, and that makes Wombat Man be like, oh, what is it? Why does he have so many citrus?
World's
I can't
greatest
do
detective.
And also the fact that Connie's like, Tim has 5 oranges. Wasn't even that hard. It's just math. And he's like, how did you figure it out? She's like, because I can do math. I was like, thank you, Connie. Connie has had a lot of good deadpan lines in this album.
I know. She's great.
So yeah, I really like
Eugene is a good
I really
influence
like Connie there.
when he brings the snark into people's lives.
Yeah. So there's Wombat Man.
And then there's also the What If segment, which they totally stole from us.
I know.
They stole from me.
I didn't think about that until last night. I was like, and I thought we were over dramatic in terms like if this thing was different, everyone would have died and the world
Except for
would
we
end.
actually looked at it logically and they didn't. The What If segment, I have a bit to say on that. I'll probably go into that before I go into other things.
Yeah. We'll just go over the summary of the segments and then we can start going through them.
Then it basically looks at Bible stories where there were instances where a person could have gotten revenge on other people.
Yep.
And they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks at what would have happened in the most exaggerated sense possible.
The most,
because every single time the world ends up blowing up. Somehow.
Everyone.
Every single time. And it's stories like Jacob and Esau and how Esau didn't get mad at Jacob when he
apologized.
Came back and he apologized. The other one is Joseph and not getting mad at his brothers. And the prodigal son. Yeah, the prodigal son coming back and his dad throwing him a party.
Yeah.
And I listened to this episode once at the dentist, which will come into play later. The other time I listened to this was on the way back to Vancouver in the car with my mom, and she thought they were funny until, these little segments, until I pointed out the fact that these segments could have been, honestly impactful and interesting if they looked at the situations in a realistic sense. Instead, they over exaggerate things and make it silly to a level where you can't take it seriously and you don't actually care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves no impact whatsoever. But if you actually listen to things, because Jacob would have been killed by Esau, which would have caused Israel not to be the same, which would have caused everything in the world to be different, basically. And if you look at it that way, you're like, oh my gosh, that'd leave such a big impact. But they're like, no, then sheep learned how to drive and they blew up the world. Captain...
Goats, please.
Yeah, and it was the same way that Captain Absolutely was created, though. Because, something was spilt into a computer.
Yeah,
just
it was
I was Derek.
Yeah, it was goats have taken over the world, and now they've developed their technology to the point of nuclear fission, but they don't have opposable thumbs, and so they dropped dropped radioactive material, and that blew up the world.
And, I don't know, what do you think about my point?
I think the weirdest thing is that this is a Twilight Zone parody, but they didn't use the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that was weird, too.
I was I guess both of the Twilight Zone and the What If Zone are both parodies made by our characters. They aren't things that are on TV in this universe. They're both things that they made up. So I was that makes it a little... I was I'm not sure if it's less weird or weirder if they had a parody version of that was on TV, and then they parodied that parody version for BTV.
No, it makes more sense actually that this one was specifically for BTV because they did the other one for kids radio and stuff. Because they probably shouldn't use the same property thing. That's a good point actually.
It's still weird.
It is weird. But what do you think about it losing
that is
all
a good
meaning?
That is a good point. It could have been actually thought provoking.
Think about that at
no,
all?
I
or
didn't.
Is it just me? Because that bothered me.
I didn't think about that, and you're right. It could have been actually thought provoking if they actually thought about what the consequences would have been.
Think about our what ifs. My favorite what if is what if Katrina didn't become a Christian, because that one was really impactful, and I didn't think it would be as impactful as it did.
Yeah.
Versus us being oh, Eugene would have thrown a hissy fit because blah, 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 Katrina relationship troubles, and you would have blown up the world. Everyone would turn off the video and no one would care.
Yeah.
So, and the last thing, I think that's the only storyline left, is the Count of Monte Cristo one. I don't think there's another one on top of that.
There was the hospital eye for an eye thing.
Oh, yeah. That made my mom laugh, but then she started feeling really sick. She gets nauseous really easily, and she was driving the car, so that was bad.
Oh, Mom.
The eye for an eye thing actually kind of made me laugh a little bit with, like, Chris's nurse character. I thought was kind of funny. It was like, oh, doctor, I love you so much.
What happened? What happened to you? Well, I just keep telling myself it wouldn't work.
That was actually funny. It was also kind of gross, though, the way they did. Take everyone's body parts off.
Okay.
And then he was like, let me get my bone saw. And I was like, oh, jeez.
Here was the interesting thing, is that they set up a joke, and I was like, oh, it's kind of clever, but also it's kind of obvious, and then they didn't follow through on the joke whatsoever, even though it was perfectly set up. Which was that the lost an eye thing, the second one. They were like... She was like, she didn't think that vacillate was a real word when we were playing Scrabble. And then she tagged me, and I lost an I. And I was waiting for the punchline, where it was like, no, I mean, I lost the letter I tile out of vacillate on the Scrabble board.
Oh.
That's right. It seems like it's set up because vacillate has the letter I in it. She's like, I lost an I. We were playing Scrabble. Letter I's in the word we were fighting over.
And then she pulls her eye.
Yeah, I thought what was going to happen was the doctor was going to pull her eye out, and then she was going to be like, no, I mean, she knocked the tile off the board, and then they just...
How dare you?
That joke was so set up, and then it just didn't happen. I was like...
Didn't do anything. I'm gonna talk about Count of Monte Cristo last.
Okay, I'll talk about other things then.
I was gonna say something about the... What was the Riddler's name in this?
The Puzzler.
Yeah, the Puzzler. I liked how the Puzzler came to be in this, because it... As stupid as it was...
It's a very DC Marvel kind of...
It was a very DC thing. If it was, like, on a different scale and different stakes involved, and it wasn't something so silly, I legitimately could see this being something. Also, except for Bruce wouldn't be the one to instigate it.
Before I was leading the Revengers. It's like, yeah.
Because, like, what happens is, Wombat Man turns off Riddler's alarm clock because it's bothering him every morning, and then Riddler is late to work.
No, it wasn't bothering him. It was because Wombat Man is so bad at solving puzzles that he thought it was evil for him to write crossword puzzles.
He wrote crossword puzzles.
He intentionally made him lose his job by turning off his alarm clock, so he'd stop writing hard crossword puzzles in the paper. Which is I loved how excruciatingly bad at any type of puzzle Wombat Man is. When Connie asked the rhetorical question about revenge, he's like, "Is this another puzzle?" All I can think of was College Humor's Badman video with Riddler. I was like, "Is it a helicopter?"
College Humor. I'm not really big on College Humor stuff because I don't really like their sense of humor.
But
their Batman videos are so funny.
I was like, "That's what this is."
Yeah, it did make me think of the Riddler.
I'll riddle you. Is it a helicopter?
He calls Alfred for help. And
did you try helicopter, Sal?
I did try that, but that's not the answer. And then also the one where the people die, and he's like, it's just like my fish. They're sleeping in the fishbowl in the sky.
No! Yeah, so I really liked that. I was like, this is literally what that is how bad he is at puzzles. I love the first thing they did with the Wombat Man thing was point out how ridiculous it is to have your superhero's identity centered around a rodent.
I know, and then she's like, but they're really cute, and he's like, they're horrifying. She's like, but they're small and fuzzy, and they have big eyes. He's like, I know, it's terrifying.
There's also, at the beginning, there was this very short sketch where there was lawyers mediating between dogs and cats fighting with each other.
Oh, yeah,
that was 45-second bit.
Yeah, I'm glad that one was short. It was just,
Yeah. So the what if, I'll talk more about, what if, so yeah, it happens, Joseph was really, turned into a really racist caricature, and then...
that hurt me so bad. He was rapping, and I yelled. I was like, oh, no, I was at the dentist. I couldn't yell. I wanted to yell.
Yeah, he starts rapping with the music and stuff. I was like, and then he's like, and I was like, and then the pyramids were cubes, and the aliens that built the pyramids were upset with Pharaoh and destroyed the world. I was like, Okay, that's kind of funny, but still.
Okay, so...
And
I was listening to that, and I was like, darn it, Odyssey, I thought we wouldn't rap anymore. I thought we agreed on this, but you keep on putting raps in things, and you need to stop.
Every time the What If Zone music played, it sounded more and more like the Stranger Things theme to me.
I still need to watch that show. You do. Okay, we talked about...
Monte Cristo. The Monte Cristo. Count of the Monte Cristo. Which, as soon as this happened... I was like, I'm doing a story on this. I know even before it started, as soon as it said the title, I was like, I know someone who will either be really happy or really angry with this. For those who don't know, someone in the room is a very big fan of the Count of Monte Cristo.
So, I know I've said that, I'm pretty sure I've said that Vicious is my favorite book at some point during these episodes.
Probably.
But I don't think I've said that Vicious is tied with the Count of Monte Cristo as my favorite book in the world. So when I heard that they were starting to do a adaptation of the Count of Monte Cristo, I was actually kind of excited.
Really?
I was like, man, this could be really interesting.
Immediately I
was also like, or this could be really, really terrible.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hope and be positive.
That's what I thought, except I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know how this is going to go. And then immediately I'm like, well, it's a war over sandwiches where they're trying to figure out the recipe to tuna on toast, so I think I can guess how Victoria will feel about this.
Okay, so for reference, when I started playing the episode for my mother, it takes 7 hours to drive from our hometown Castlegar to... That's what pit stopped, 8 hours.
Oh, yeah, you guys didn't stop this time.
We stopped a couple times, so we were trying to get you to work and stuff.
Yes, thank you.
So it was about 7 hours, roughly, from Castlegar to Vancouver, and one of those hours I spent summarizing the... Count of Monte Cristo is, like, about the same scope and size and characters and plot as Les Mis. So it is like
one volume or all volumes?
All volumes. It is a very complicated book. People underestimate how complicated it is.
It's not as long as it, though, right?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. I thought you said volume. I thought you meant like it's as long as all of Les Mis. I'm like, that's like
in scope. It has like about the same amount of characters as Les Mis.
That's a lot of characters.
Including like all side characters, and they all have their own plot lines going on.
Do they have last names?
Yes.
Oh, it's better than Victor Hugo.
But they also have like all these really confusing family connections, and everyone's like engaged to someone else, and they're like, oh, I don't want to marry you, and stuff like that. And there's like all this stuff going on top of the revenge plot and everything else, and it's so complicated.
But ham and cheese, Victoria.
I took some breaks.
And French toast.
Okay, I took some breaks between reading. You need to... you are going to kill me, Devin. I took a couple breaks between reading Count of Monte Cristo. There were so many characters, I actually forgot who some of them were by the end of it. There were so many, like, minor characters, so I was just like, okay, I know, like, 10 other characters that could fit your description. I'm not sure who you are. I'm just gonna pretend I know who you are. I had to look up character lists online, but I kid you not, there are so many characters, they did not appear on the lists, and I could not figure out who they were. So, fortunately, it was just like minor characters. Anyway, so I spent an hour summarizing the bare bones entire plot from memory of the Count of Monte Cristo to my mother, and then, I played the episode for her after that, and I feel like I can't do a proper analysis of this if I don't spend like 2 hours talking about it.
I'll say that I did find this funny. I did appreciate, at least, it doesn't fix things, but at least that Whit, as the narrator, kept on pointing out how egregiously they were skipping over things.
Okay, that actually made me laugh.
Well, moving from bit to bit, he's like, and we'll just flip another 500 pages here, blah, 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 this and this happens, we don't need to cover that. So at least he was,
actually made me laugh,
least he was acknowledging how much they were skipping over in the story.
The part that made me laugh was when he's like, and we'll just flip a couple hundred pages this way, and then it was just like, how dare you, oh, nope, go back. I was like, yes, that is very accurate.
The Big Diff.
It is a long book.
Prison Chateau Big Diff thing. I wouldn't have got that if you hadn't pointed it out, so thank you.
It made me so... I'll get to that. Okay, so... in the Count of Monte Cristo, the way I need to, like, summarize my entire life history with this storyline. My goodness, we are going to be here for hours, Devin. I hope you understand that.
No, I've got a blanket. Okay,
so the way I first found Count of Monte Cristo is because I discovered the musical. And then after...
I thought you were going to say it was because of American Book.
No, it's because I discovered the musical, which led to me watching... the movie with, I can't remember the actor's name. The guy who plays Mondigo in it is the guy who is the real Mandarin in Iron Man 3 and also the main guy in Memento. His name.
Yeah.
He plays Mondigo in that adaptation. And then after that, I got my hands on a copy of the book and I read the book. And there were things in the movie that weren't in the book, which made me really confused and actually had to Google some stuff because there were like plot lines about characters being born out of wedlock that were just in the movie and not in the book at all. And I feel like most adaptations that exist take all the stuff from the storyline, not from the book, but instead from the movie. Which is a lot of adaptations. I'm just going to be ranting about adaptations for a while. A lot of adaptations have this problem, like, especially Gothic adaptations and lots of other ones of classic books. Like, a good example is Frankenstein, because in the original Frankenstein movie put out by Universal, in that movie, like, the monster, all he does is, like, grunt and stuff like that, and he's not very smart. Whereas if you read the book, like I have, you'll know that the creature was, like, insanely smart, and he was, like, very, very well taught. He could quote Paradise Lost in entirety from memory, and he was, like, extremely well educated and stuff. And very articulate.
Does it say where the brain came from?
A body.
So it wasn't like a specific smart person or something?
No.
It was just random brain?
It was just a random brain. But they were all, like, immaculate parts. That's the thing. Like, they were all really great parts, but together they looked hideous. Kind of like Buddy's Frankenstein thing you would have had going on in the other episode. But the main thing, whereas in Frankenstein adaptations, the main thing that plagues them is that they make the creature unintelligent. The main thing that plagues Count of Monte Cristo adaptations is that they have Edmund and Mercedes end up together in the end. They do not end up together in the end at the book. Spoilers, by the way.
I figured.
It's been out for hundreds of years. Deal with it. So, that's like the thing that really got me in the movie. I was just like, they tweaked things in the movie. In the book.
They tweaked things?
They changed things.
Tweaked?
Yeah, they tweaked.
Things?
I am tired and mad.
I did.
Leave me alone.
When they first said Mercedes' name, they had like car sound effects rush by, and all I could think of was Merchant of Odyssey.
It's pronounced Mercedes in some things, and Mercedes in other things
Porsche,
because of their
in love
accents.
with a car?
So I usually say Mercedes.
You in love with a car?
But yeah, they did the car sound effect twice at the beginning, and then at the end when she appeared to like stop the sword fight.
Oh, I think I might have just assumed that was her driving up to the...
No.
Sorry, that was... Anyways.
I didn't notice that until the second time I listened to it. Anyway, so the thing with the movie is that, basically, long story short, I'm trying to go, like, bare bones into this, just explaining things. There's so much I'm leaving out. Montague and Mercedes have a kid, and they also get married in the time spent where Edmund is in jail. Montague is Mercedes' cousin, which is one of the many reasons she does not want to marry him, but he's head over heels for her. So, but he's like a wimp in the book. In most adaptations, they have him being like this clever mastermind. In the book, he is a wimp, and there's like 3 other guys who really hate Edmund, and, well, 2 other guys, and then 1 other guy just ends up getting involved, basically. There's 2 guys. One guy is jealous that his father has a lot of money because he thinks he's the landlord, and he thinks the dad should give him more rent when he actually doesn't owe him more rent, which is, yeah. I made that joke to Mom, yeah. And the other guy is someone who is jealous of Edmund's position at work because Edmund got the promotion he wanted to get. So these 2 guys
maybe he should have thought of putting ham and cheese on French toast.
They work on a ship, and Edmund gets captain, and he wanted to be captain after the captain retires, so instead he's first
what
mate.
we gonna do? The captain likes Edmund more than
Please
we
stop.
do.
Please, you're hurting me. And,
I love Hamilton.
oh my gosh. So these 2 guys go up to Montague, and they're like, hey, we noticed that you're kind of upset with Edmund, but you're a wimp, so you won't do anything about it, so you're not going to get the girl. You team up with us. We have more people on our side. We are going to frame Edmund. This is the Bonaparte era, so Napoleon has already been exiled to an island. They decide that they're going to frame Edmund to look like a Bonapartist when they are very unpopular at this time. And so then they frame Edmund, but at the same time, and they get Edmund sent to jail, and the guy who is the judge who's looking at Edmund's case quickly figures out that he's not a Bonapartist, but the thing is, the judge guy, who's my second favorite character, his name's Villefort, his dad is actually a Bonapartist, and he's like, hey, Napoleon sent my dad this letter. If I try and pretend this is Edmund's letter, then he can go to jail, and I'm trying to get promotion and become, like, a bigger political figure, and I don't want my dad dragging me down because of his unpopular political ties and opinions. So then he knows Edmund is not a bad guy, but he still gets him sent off to jail.
Pontius piloted him.
So along the way, during the time Edmund's in jail, Villefort actually meets the other guys who are, like, conspiring against Edmund, and they all kind of team up and become friends and stuff. And shortly after Edmund's in jail, Montague tells Mercedes that Edmund died in jail, and that's why, after, like, years of grieving, because Edmund is in jail for, like, 17 years or something like that. Like, it's a long time.
Look down.
Stop. And so, Mercedes and Montague have a kid named Albert. In the movie adaptation, there's this whole plot line where it's like Mercedes didn't actually love Montague, but she was already pregnant with, like,
and then Albert had this ring that he gave away.
Stop. With Dante's son, so that's why she married him, but she never really loved him. And then Mercedes and Edmund end up getting married at the end in most adaptations, like even in, like, the musical and the movies and everything, and in the Odyssey adaptation. But in the book, all these things happen, and once Edmund finally gets his revenge on everyone, Mercedes is like, okay, through all this, my husband ended up committing suicide, and because of all the terrible things that you did to his life in getting your revenge on him, and now my son is going off to fight in the war, and I need time to, like, decompress. You and I are really different people, and you're kind of crazy, and I'm glad you calmed down a bit, but we still need a lot of time apart from each other. I loved you, but that was in the past. We both need to move on. And that's, like, the end of her storyline. And I'm like, girl, I respect you so much. And I loved her so much in the book. She was, like, the best character, arguably. Because she was just so great. And she figured out, like, it was Edmund the second she saw him. In every single adaptation, she was always like, I know it's you, get off your high horse, stop pretending you're an avenging angel, and just move on with your life. But she's always, like, also the supportive figure who's always just, like... your angel, I love sandwiches. Stop. She's like, I really love you, though, so I'm always going to stay with you. But in the book, she's like, no, you need to get your life sorted. I need to deal with my own stuff. Goodbye. And then Edmund actually ends up with someone he has, like, 1 minute of screen time with, which made me really mad. And the way he leaves the castle and he escapes is so cool. And I was so excited to, like, see them adapt that part in this, and they just didn't at all.
What happened? Did he float away on French toast?
No, but I want to say something else before I forget. So in this adaptation, they combined Mondigo, Danglars. Danglars is the guy who wanted to be the captain of the ship, but then it was Edmund. And also, like, the landlord character. The landlord character has never been in any adaptation I've ever seen, even though, like, all this was basically his idea in the first place to, like, get Edmund sent to jail, which is weird. And Villefort was actually played by Katie Lee in this episode, which was so hilarious to me because he was on the other side of the war, which means not only did they make him a woman in this adaptation, they also made him the equivalent to a Bonapartist in this episode, which would have made him roll in his grave if he were a real person. So I actually thought that was kind of funny in, like, the most insulting way possible.
And probably completely unintentional.
Yeah, also probably completely unintentional. But she's basically the person who, like, said he did all that stuff, so then he went to jail. So it was basically because of Connie. So I'm going to say Connie's character was Villefort in this. Yeah, I told you to get comfy. I still have a lot to say. Are you bored yet?
No.
Are you just saying that?
Yes.
Okay. So the way he escapes the jail... By the way, the jail is called Le Chateau d'If. So it's like D''I circumflex F. And they made it a pun in this. And there was, like, all this sandwich stuff in the episode. And I was just like, you know what? Okay. After all the stuff I had to deal with in that Camilla fairy tale with, like, onions or whatever. Okay. And then I heard Wit make a pun out of the Chateau d'If's name. I have, like, dentist tools in my mouth and stuff. I almost sat up and I screamed, and I was just like, this is not okay anymore. That was, like, my breaking point. And I don't know why it was that, but it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And so, the way that he escapes is really, really, really interesting. So he meets this priest while he's in jail, and the priest is like, hey, I'll teach you. The priest accidentally tunnels into his room because he thinks it's, like, the way out of the castle. So he's, like, trying to escape, too? The priest is trying to escape, so he makes a tunnel. He was, like, put in a different cell and stuff for different reasons. He, like, got this treasure map to the island of Monte Cristo, and people thought he stole it, but he didn't steal it, so he's sent to jail. And I could be wrong on that. It's been a couple of years since I read the book. But either way, he has this treasure map to Monte Cristo, and then he's, like, trying to tunnel out of the jail so he can go there and get the treasure and leave and then live a normal life and stuff. But he accidentally tunnels into Edmund's cell. And so then he's just like, I'm super old and you're young, so if you help me tunnel out of here, in return, I will, like, educate you on all these languages I have to know because I'm a priest, so, like, I'll teach you Latin, and I also know how to sword fight and do math and all this other cool stuff.
Because I'm a cool
priest.
So
I will, like, completely teach you how to do literally everything, and
she's a cool
in return,
pastor.
I'm gonna help you escape, and I'm also gonna share with you this treasure. And Edmund's just like, there's literally no negatives to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So then they escape together, but in the process, there's a tunnel collapse after, like, years and years of working on the tunnel and stuff. The priest dies in it. So Edmund, like, brings the priest back to the priest room, and then these guards come in, they're like, oh no, this prisoner died. So they put him in the body bag, and they're like, oh, we're lazy. Instead of burying him, we'll just, like, take him and throw him out into the sea when the tide's high. So then they leave, and then Edmund, like, sneaks
Swaps in the
into the
body.
priest's thing, and he puts the priest's body in his own bed, and he goes in the body bag, and then he, like, goes in the water, and he swims out. He goes onto a pirate ship after, like, years with the pirates and bonding with them and stuff, and getting, like, some life servants by saving their lives and stuff. He goes to Count to Monte Cristo, and then he becomes the Count, and then he, like, slowly weaves his way into everyone's lives, looking like a really nice benefactor, and then ruins all their lives. That's the barest bones possible for the plot of the Count of Monte Cristo. There's so much more. But not only did we not really get that much of the revenge stuff, it was also kind of weak in this. And I was so excited when he was going to do the escape thing. I was like, yeah, he's going to go into the ocean. He's going to do all this stuff. He's like, I landed on a sandwich and I'm safe. And I was just like, I want to see him escape in a body bag.
There's a volcano. Volcanoes are cool.
Yeah, they were like, there's a volcano. And I was like, what is this? And, oh my gosh, there's just... The Count of Monte Cristo is one of my favorite stories of all time. And I love every aspect of it because I think it's, like, perfect. And just going from that to this, there were some parts where I was honestly a little insulted. And just, especially when they did, like, some of the sound effects that they made for certain things. And he's like, I'm gonna call this the Monte Cristo sandwich. And I was like, I'm so done with everything. I don't think it was the worst thing ever. They did... This adaptation to the Count of Monte Cristo was closer than some other adaptations I've seen to book to movie, which still, like, is a very low bar.
Monte Cristo or in general?
In general.
That's a very low bar.
I know, I'm talking about Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. There's nothing in common with that book and movie at all, other than the title. It's... When I finished the episode, my mom was like, it actually wasn't that bad an adaptation, because they had the revenge element, and they had 3 of the main characters, the most 3 main characters that are generally recognized by media in the story. But, like... The most important things in the plot didn't happen. Like, the things that are the most essential that need to happen. The fact that not only does Edmund want to get revenge on the people who put him in the prison, he also wants to get revenge on Mercedes, because the first thing he finds out after he escapes, and he's like, I'm gonna go marry my sweetheart, and the first thing he finds out is that she married someone else while he was gone. So he feels, like, really betrayed by her, so, like, he hates her. And he eventually gets over it, and in most adaptations, every single adaptation, basically, he ends up being with her romantically. But, like, Penny, I will say, though, Penny and Wooten were pretty cute in this. Like, they actually were.
So they couldn't have all that turmoil between them because they cast...
I know,
Wooten
I
and
understand that it was, like, it was short, and they needed time to be stupid, but, like, I feel like I am too emotionally unbalanced and emotionally close to the Count of Monte Cristo to be partial in any way.
You think?
To this adaptation in any way. So I'm just gonna list the positives. The Villefort thing made me laugh because that was, like, the biggest slap in the face you can give his character, because he's, like, yeah, and he's one of my favorite characters. And Count of Monte Cristo, my 3 favorite characters are Mondigo, Villefort, and Mercedes. And, like, Mercedes, I don't want anything bad to happen to her, but when bad things happen to Mondigo and Villefort that are funny, I can generally, like, laugh really hard at them because they're kind of losers in certain ways. So that was funny. Penny and Wooten were cute in it. I was impressed by the fact that the king could force one person to give all of his funds to another person. I didn't know kings could do that.
It's like a monarchy, Victoria.
Yeah, I don't think that's how they work.
What's the non-constitutional kind?
An absolute monarchy.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing you can do, though.
Why not? Who's gonna stop you? The Congress?
Me! Andre Dumas! Andre Dumas was rolling in his grave because of this episode.
Yeah, probably.
He's also, fun fact, for those who don't know, lots of people probably do know, he's the guy who wrote Three Musketeers. You probably knew that. Yeah. I didn't know that for a little while after I read the book. But, like...
He's a neat guy.
It also... The thing with the story is Edmund got revenge on literally everyone except for one person. And the one person he didn't get revenge on, out of, like, the main 4 guys who ruined his life, was not Mondigo. Mondigo dies in the story. He is, like, pushed to such an intense point of loneliness and miserableness in his life through everything that Edmund does to him that he shoots himself in the mouth. And Villefort has, like, everything slowly taken away from him and his family slowly, literally poisoned, and he goes insane. All of his family's either, like, extremely sick or dead by the end of the story. And Danglars, who was my least favorite of the main bunch, the other guy, the landlord, was, like, blackmailed or something like that. His life was ruined. Danglars was my least favorite of the bunch. Landlord does not count because he's, like, never in anything. And he got, like, a bunch of money after he had all his money taken away from him. Because Edmund's just like, take this and go. I've learned to be nice. And I was like, why couldn't you have done that to the guys I actually liked? And... yeah. I just... It was definitely the worst adaptation of the Count of Monte Cristo I've ever seen. But the thing is, I've never actually seen a good adaptation of the Count of Monte Cristo. It's like a lot of Gothic stories, in the fact that it's so famous and it's so popular, everyone's like, I can do that better than the original, when the original is obviously better, and then they just end up making something that isn't as good as the original. I understand that they didn't have a lot of time and stuff, and it's also Odyssey, so they can't have all that murder. There's so many duels. Everyone duels over, like, the smallest thing. It reminded me of Hamilton, because, well, I read it before Hamilton came out, so when I was listening to, like, the 10 Commandments duel song, I was like, I already know all these rules of dueling by heart because everyone duels over the smallest thing in Count of Monte Cristo, and, like, every single time they duel, they re-explain the rules of dueling, so I know all the rules.
So that's where Yu-Gi-Oh got it from.
And probably, and yeah,
It's time to duel.
I think the best thing in all of the Count of Monte Cristo, with how the characters end up, is the fact that Mercedes doesn't end up with him, because he is, like, so tarnished by all the terrible things he's done and stuff like that, and he's gotten over it, but he's not the same person he was, and it shows, and she can't be with him, knowing all the things he's done and stuff, and that he isn't really that sorry, even though he has forgiven them. And, like, that's never in any adaptation. And it's, like, such a... Even... I understand why they wouldn't have that in this, because they want Penny and Wooten to be together. You know, and they also didn't put the marriage element in between Mondigo and Mercedes. But, like, having... If Wooten did, like, basically get his revenge on Eugene's character in this. And so, because of that, wouldn't it be, like, way more interesting to show, since they definitely didn't do that with the what-ifs properly, like, how, like, the literal, you have to dig 2 graves. Like, he gets his revenge, but because of that, he loses Penny. And then it ends. Wouldn't that be, like, more... like, leave on a better note, and, like, one that actually makes you think?
No, probably, yeah. You know how...
But it's BTV, so we can't do that.
You know how, for every Oddcast episode, I write like that, please join us as we discuss X, Y, and Z.
The Count of Monte Cristo, the Count of Monte Cristo, the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yep.
I'm sorry. You guys, probably no one cares about anything I just said, but... Yeah, I could have gone on like 10 more tangents, and I didn't, so you're welcome.
And that's the important thing. And then there was a bonus track it was just a short extra skit deleted from the episode of a marketing agency in ancient Rome trying to push Christianity and come up with the selling point. And it's like, the selling point is, unlike other faiths at the time, you do good to everyone regardless of how they treat you.
I didn't really think this thing was funny at all.
Not really.
I think it made Mom laugh at one point, and I was like, what are you laughing at?
So overall, Victoria.
Overall, I don't know what to think at all.
As a BTV episode, it's like, hey, they covered the
BTV episode, I don't think it was bad. I think it was a lot better than the last one.
I think it was definitely better than the last one. It's still not like a full regular BTV.
But it felt like one.
The story by Bernard, which is Count of the Monte Cristo in this, I always want to say Crisco, which actually would have made more sense in this story because Crisco's margarine or shortening.
Yeah.
And this is sandwiches. Count of the Monte Cristo was like the story by Bernard in this one. And it's structured way more like, I'd say they pretty much nailed the structuring of that in terms of story by Bernard, whereas in To Tell the Truth, where it was like the Harlowus Doilicus one that was like not at all the proper structure for a story by Bernard. So they got that down. There's still no did you knows, yeah.
That's
and
okay.
Now you know it. So we still don't have that. I think the interesting thing, I was musing on the title of it, because it was like, oh yay, BTV Revenge is finally one word title again, right? Because To Tell the Truth was weird. Could have just been BTV Truth.
It should have been BTV Truth.
The interesting thing is, looking at other BTV episodes, though, BTV Temptation, album 49 is kind of a great area, but for the most part, they're all titled after, like, the positive aspect of things. It's like compassion, forgiveness, unity, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Truth. It's never like
a negative thing.
Exactly. So, and temptation's not a great thing, but it's not an opposite of a good thing you should do. It's not something you're doing at all. It's just something that happens. I don't know how you would flip temptation to be a positive thing you do unless it was like BTV resistance, but that would be like a weird
BTV peer pressure.
Yeah. So revenge is an actual action, a sinful action you can take. So it's like the first one that's been named like that, which is interesting. It's a little bit interesting. The more interesting part of that, though, is if you flip that to the positive side of what you're supposed to do instead, what would you call that then? BTV...
Forgiveness?
Yeah. Except BTV Forgiveness already exists.
They should just call it BTV Forgiveness Part 2.
Yeah, it is... But I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, that's weird. When you think about BTV Forgiveness, though, it's like all revenge can be resolved with forgiveness. However, not all forgiveness involves potential revenge. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, revenge is like a more specific subset of things that could require forgiveness. So it makes sense that you could have like forgiveness as like a general thing, and then revenge is focusing on a more specific set of like forgiveness-related things. So I'm like, okay, there's some kind of weird elements to it, but you think about it, I guess it justifies itself. So,
I don't know how to feel. I feel like
honestly, the Wombat Man stuff was pretty funny overall.
The first
There's
time
some
I was
solid
like,
jokes.
The first time I listened to it, I was like, "This is terrible," and the second time I was like, "Okay, this is
same." Yeah, the
funny.
first time I was annoyed. The second time I was like, "There's actually a lot of good jokes."
Yeah, it was better the second time. Also, the what if wasn't as terrible the second time. I'm still not gonna take back my points on the ways it could have improved, but the Jason announcer cutting into the Count of Monte Cristo and saying, "And then the world exploded," actually made me laugh, and I didn't notice him saying that the first time I listened to it, so I was just like, oh, okay, that almost
yeah, Rob Sirloin, I think was his name,
makes it pay off for the other things. But yeah, I'm
gonna give it.
The funniest thing is, if you think about this as a TV show, they were probably like holding that guy back and be like, "Don't go on the stage," and he like ran up onto the stage and they put like a little cane and pulled him off.
I'm gonna give this one Give it a 4.3.
That
What?
high?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously the adaptation was weird, but like that doesn't really bother me personally that much. Most of the sketches were pretty all right, and there were some good humorous moments. As always with BTV, it wasn't just a bunch of things illustrating the same point. They like looked at revenge from different angles and different like questions about the nature of revenge, what it does, why it's wrong, stuff like that. Thematically, it was all right. They had lots of like good humor and a number of different references to different things. I learned a lot more about the Count of Monte Cristo
today
from this episode than I knew beforehand.
Like what?
Just the general. All I knew about it was I was like, there's a guy named Edmond Dantes, and he's like, he wants revenge for something. So I learned, obviously I learned more from you now, but I learned more from BTV Revenge than I knew beforehand.
Did anything I say actually come out coherently?
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to be
4.
coherent yet succinct, which is not something I'm good at doing, as you probably
I'm gonna make it a 4.
Okay. I think like the eye for an eye sketch was kind of strange. I'm not sure if I'm more positive or negative on that one.
I do like we have another medical soap opera we can chalk up on our list now.
I really liked Chris in it though. She was easily the best part of it.
Doctor.
And I liked Wombat Man. Second listen through, I was like, I actually really like him, and I like the Riddler's backstory in this because I think it's funny that this is all Wombat Man's fault.
And not even like in a way that like unintentionally, like he intentionally did this to him for the most petty of reasons, even ignoring the fact it's puzzle related. Which is dumb. It's the fact that like he's doing it because he's like, I need to protect the city from your evil crossword puzzles. He's like, you could just choose to not look at the crossword puzzles, Wombat Man.
But I kind of liked how it played on the whole idea that lots of superheroes create their villains, except for in this, it was like he purposefully did it, basically, and not just like how there are arguments that like Joker makes Batman stronger and Batman makes Joker stronger and stuff like that. It's like this was deliberate, and I liked that.
I like to point out that not all cases, but in many cases, that vigilante superheroes are actually based more around ideas of revenge than they are around ideas of justice.
Yeah.
Really,
that is definitely something I can confirm.
And they called him out for that.
The what ifs, I've already said a lot about those. Count of Monte Cristo, I don't know if I'm ever going to reach a point where I can have a succinct opinion on it. Where I can say, like, I either like it or didn't like it. I think that it was...
So you're not saying you didn't like it?
I'm not saying I didn't like it.
Okay.
Yeah, which actually surprised me when I finished it. I was just like, I actually did not hate that, which surprised me because, yeah.
Yeah, surprised me too, especially after hearing you talk about it.
No, I had a lot to rant
minutes.
about. And I didn't hate it. I think that it was actually kind of an okay retelling of it for people who've never heard it before. It'll actually, like, educate them a little bit on some things, very, very small aspects of the framing device of the Count of Monte Cristo storyline. And I think that's cool because that's my favorite book. I think it's cool that more people will know about the story because of this.
It's a positive librarian way to look at it.
Thank you. Positive librarian English major way to look at it. I understand why they did a lot of things and that they didn't do for time constraints, but what it made me really, really want
is a full dramatic version.
Full focus on the family,
version.
Legit audiobook version, like how they've done with a bunch of other books. I would listen.
So you wouldn't want it within the canon of Odyssey?
No.
Oh, interesting.
I would actually. I was thinking two things. I was thinking like one, I want best option is for Focus on the Family to actually make their own radio drama of the Count of Monte Cristo that actually follows the book and like has everything the book has and stuff. Probably cut back on lots of things because, like I said, there's a lot of stuff that happens and they need a huge cast.
Well, yeah, their Les Mis version certainly cuts back a lot.
Oh, I didn't know they did a Les Mis one. Or I was thinking a 2-parter or a 3-parter or something like that of the Count of Monte Cristo with Odyssey characters could actually be pretty cool. Like something that is not. This was basically a half episode of the Count of Monte Cristo, and it's way too complex story.
Just a full album.
Do a half episode. It's like doing Les Mis in a half episode. Where
everybody dies the end.
I mean, like, the difference between Les Mis is Les Mis has a lot more, like, focal characters than the Count of Monte Cristo has. Where, like, each character has their own individual chunk of the storyline. Everything in the end, even though, like, tons of stuff happens with everyone and everyone has their own storylines, it can all kind of, in a way, but, like, in a very loose number 42 sort of way, be traced back to Edmund. But yeah.
So, rating?
3 or 2.7.
All right, 2.7.
I think I'm losing my voice because of my rant. Can you hear it?
It's a tiny bit.
I can hear it.
Oh
no.
So yeah, that's BTV Revenge, and
it made me lose my voice.
Wow. Okay, voice just really decelerated there. Let's try and not make her voice sound like that because that's gonna make things worse. Okay. So.
I don't have a lot to say on this next episode, which is good.
Crash Course. Finale, episode 831, written by Kathy Buchanan. What happens in Crash Course, Victoria?
It's kind of a more modern retelling. Let's see how they like retellings. Of License to Drive, but with
Except then it's not. It's like the first half is.
Yeah, the first half is with Buck and Jules, and then Buck gets his driver's license. Eugene is teaching Buck, and Connie's teaching Jules. Jules is having trouble learning from Connie.
What is this?
Because Connie is doing the exact method that she did with Eugene, which
worked out so well last time.
I was listening to it, and I was like, man, I'm amazed in retrospect that Eugene would allow himself to be this condescended to.
I mean, he really didn't want to, as you'll recall.
I know, but still, like, he didn't try to get, like, hire someone to teach him or something like that. Anyway, Jules is having none of that. Which is understandable for her character. And Jean had already known Connie for a while by the time they did License to Drive. Buck gets his license, like, right away, but we find out shortly afterwards, Eugene does not find out, though, that Buck has known how to drive for 5 years. Ever since he was 11. He said ever since his feet were able to reach the gas pedal, Mr. Skint was sending him on errands. Which, I'm like, burn that man in a fire. Buck gets his license.
That's kind of the country life. But
Buck gets his license like 5 minutes into the episode, and Jules is like, please teach me how to drive. And then Jules crashes Connie's car into its end. Because she mixes up brakes. Not because of Buck. Buck is perfect, my baby boy. So Jules owes Connie even more money on top of everything else she owes Connie, from Connie paying back all of the debts on Bill's credit card earlier this album. which is an obscene amount of money.
Yeah,
I
she
can
did
only
make
guess.
reference, because her debt was obviously reduced after Buck got Valerie's
there's
parents to return the stuff, but
lots left.
Jules did make reference to, like, I'm already in debt to Connie.
Yeah, because there were, like, a lot of things that can't be returned, like food and stuff like that in the limo
For everything else, there's
thing and
MasterCard.
the DJ. So then Jules runs away, and then Buck gets in a fight with Eugene and Katrina, and he reveals that, like, he gets in a fight, he yells, oh my gosh, he yells. He yells at them, and he reveals that, like, he's already known how to drive, and Eugene taught him nothing, and then he runs out, and I was
He
just like,
starts
oh
crying.
my gosh, Eugene cries, and I was just like, what is this? And Katrina wants a puppy, that's in there too. It seems like it doesn't connect to anything.
She wants a puppy for Buck's birthday, but it's for her.
Yeah.
And, like,
And I'm like, I don't think you
Okay.
know how birthdays work, Katrina.
sure.
It's
Why
Buck's,
not? Treat
Buck's
yourself.
birthday. They're gonna have a surprise party at the end of the episode, but then Buck runs away, and they're like, well, the surprise is we gotta find Buck. So, and all they know is he ran off somewhere to Connellsville, and they don't know how to find him. Jules reappears pretty quick, and Buck gives her an envelope of money before he leaves, so she can start paying back Connie. And I'm like, oh, my baby boy, he had all this money, he was saving up for some unknown thing. It makes me emotional. And then they're like, we gotta find Buck, and there's 3 minutes left, and Devin is having a heart attack because he's just like, Kathy, how dare you? It's gonna end up cliffhanger.
I thought the album was going to end with Buck missing and having run away, and that's how the whole album
I thought
was
he
going
was
to end.
gonna run away to Mr. Skint.
That was one of my thoughts. I was like, Kathy, how dare you?
And then
How dare you,
Buck
madam?
appears like 2 seconds later after they're like, send out the search party, put his name on milk
Buck
cartons.
reappeared even
And then
quicker
Buck,
than
like,
Jules did.
Buck walks in and he's just like, hey, who are you searching for? Let me help. And they're all like, Buck! And Connie's like, happy birthday! and that's the end of it.
Happy birthday!
Happy
It's like
birthday!
Frosty
Like, it's
the
Frosty.
Snowman. We start out and it's like,
We're playing really loud.
Eugene is teaching Buck how to drive, and I was like, oh, look how far Eugene's come. I was like, I wonder if Buck knows about Eugene's colorful driving record.
He does not.
I'm sure.
He does not.
I'm sure Connie must have told him.
No, he doesn't, because you can tell, because the way Eugene responds to everything. He's just like, Buck is like, I'm gonna do my driver's test. And Eugene's like, oh, I'll set something up for you. The written part isn't that bad, but the driving part
I'll do it
can
over
be
the phone because I'm not
kinda
allowed in the building
tricky.
anymore.
And then Buck's like, oh, I already have it scheduled for this afternoon. And Eugene's like, you what? And I think he almost gave him a heart attack. Okay, Buck cannot teach Jules how to drive because the rules of being, like, having your L
It's
and
different
being
there.
in a car, is it different?
They don't have L's and N's there. They don't even have them in other provinces.
What?
It's different in every province.
They don't. That's not fair.
I mean, they have other stuff, but they don't have the same names in other provinces, and the States is completely different.
Well, never mind.
I mean, yes, I assume there is still some sort of law where it's like when you have, at the beginning, you have a permit, you can't be only accompanied by someone who's in
Who just got their permit like 2 minutes earlier.
Exactly, and here the way it
I was
works
thinking
is
that's not legal.
if you have your L, you need to have someone else in the car who has at least their N and has to be at least age 25.
I thought it was 20. Yeah, it's 25.
So Connie's teaching Jules, and I was like, please do it, and she's like, what is this? A key, say it. A key. I was like, yes, she's doing it.
And she's like, and we turn the key away. And Jules is like, okay.
I was like, oh, this is great. I'm so happy.
I was
and then
so excited.
Connie's like, hold on, no one's having a baby. I was like,
oh
I was like, I like how Connie's joking, but you look at Connie and her eyes are dead. She's having war flashbacks behind her eyes right now.
And I was like, Connie. I felt
She's like, no one's having a baby.
You know when you see like really posh people and they're like, ha ha ha, and they're drinking tea and they have their pinkies up? I felt like one of those people. And then I was thinking the new generation's just like, won't get it. And I was like, oh, you youngsters, ah ha ha, not having a baby, that joke, ah ha ha.
I was kind of annoyed that Connie was teaching Jules automatic, because I'm like, Connie, You know how to drive a standard. You taught Eugene how to drive a standard. You're not going to get anywhere in life driving an automatic.
Well, it depends if she doesn't have a standard anymore.
Nowhere. Nowhere, Victoria.
We both drive standards.
So, yeah, Connie and Jules, tempers get hot. They get hot, and then they're like, okay, we need to stop doing this for today before we kill each other. And I was like, and that is why people hire driving instructors instead of having their family members do it. It's not because the instructors know better what they're doing. It's because having your parents do it, things get personal fast.
We were both taught by our parents.
We both did a couple lessons.
Our one parent.
Yeah.
Our other parent was not in the car with us because we knew that tempers would be heated up.
Everyone was able to come to the mutual decision that would be a very poor idea.
Yeah, I
fortunate.
I don't like driving with certain people because I know they'll yell at me. It even happened like last week here, driving here. And I've had my license for a while now. So.
Several years.
Yes.
I like also coming back to Eugene's colorful driving record. He's like, I've never been in an accident, and now I'm flashing back to that guy who like had to jump horizontally to save his life into a tree during Eugene's road test.
Quit his job.
No, the guy at the bottom of the hill who had to like.
Oh yeah,
Mr. LaGrange.
The driver quit his job.
Exactly, walked back and resigned. Yeah, I was like, Eugene.
Did you though? Did you really like that guy?
Yeah.
Did you though? Did you really?
Yeah. Connie and Eugene bantering about surprise parties. Classic banter. It would like nail the class. It's hard to do. We've talked about this before. It's hard to nail.
I've talked about this quite a lot.
Nowadays, yeah, because it's like to get the proper level of banter, but also not make it regressive in terms of Eugene and Connie's relationship with each other.
Where'd my water bottle go?
In ways that they shouldn't argue
It
anymore.
disappeared under the couch.
So this was like a really good nailing of that. I was laughing so hard at like
Got it.
Whit's birthday party. He just got ahead of everyone. Jason's party. Everyone else was late. Jesus' surprise Christmas party. I'm pretty sure Jesus knew that was coming.
Okay, listen to that. I was like, you throw Jesus' Christmas birthday party? They didn't even say Christmas party. They said Jesus' birthday party.
At Christmas, she said.
Yeah.
You said last Christmas.
Yeah. And then I was like, you don't call it Christmas? You just...
Well, it's Wit's End, you know? They're like, hey, let's do a gimmicky thing.
I was
like
thinking,
they're not
like,
Halloween party.
My first thought was, do they have cake? And my second thought was, do they put the cake somewhere?
The question is who blows up the candle. No, here's what they do. They put it outside and they wait for a slow, small wind to come along and blow the candles up.
I was thinking, do they just, like, put a piece of cake, like, on the ground outside and they wait for it to be sucked up into the heavens?
Like a tractor beam shines down from the clouds.
Like, lightning shoots down and hits the cake and it's gone.
It's like if a big wind comes on and blows up the candles, like, well, we have to do it again. God wasn't in the hurricane.
So the puppy thing happens, and throughout the entire, like, thing, because Devin and I were walking around campus, and I was listening to the episode for the first time, I kept on pulling on his arm and yelling, my puppy's getting a puppy! Talking about Buck getting a puppy. Because it's Buck's puppy, it's not Katrina, they're getting a Cocker Spaniel.
So...
Puppies! Kitty's mentioned!
Yeah.
Kitty's mentioned by Connie, and I was just like, oh my gosh, your dog that must have died super early on, because...
It was mentioned in episode 6.
Only mentioned, like, 2 episodes.
Episode 6.
And then never again. Her letter to Marcy. What do you think happened to Marcy?
She's dead.
Probably.
We find out, like you said, Buck has known how to drive for a very long time, and that's how he learned so quickly with I was like, I knew he couldn't learn so quickly so well with Eugene teaching him.
Okay, Buck saying, like, Connie's like, yeah, you probably, like, figure out mathematically the circumference or whatever of, like, the angle where you need to parallel park. And Eugene was just like, I do actually. And then Buck, like, recited this equation, and I was just like, Eugene is the most proud father in the world.
Especially because this happened, like, right on the tails of Friend or Foe.
Yeah. Buck's like, repeating the equation, and Connie's like, stop.
Buck's so smart. I'm so proud of him.
He is smart, but, like, I was thinking, like, man, he's really smart, but then I thought back to Green Ring Conspiracy.
He's, like, never had any formal education in his life.
Where Katrina gave him those tests, and he, like, aced all of them, and she said, like, he is a prodigy, so, like, why is he not grades ahead of everyone else? I guess it's just because he wants to be with kids his own age.
Well, it's because he's
Probably.
never had a formal education.
That too. But he's still, like, probably smarter than all of them.
Well, yeah, but you still need that stuff because the U.S. school system. You still got to know, Victoria. Connie yells out Jules' name, and she's like, Jules Newmar Kendall. And I was like, okay, middle name, not sure how to spell that. If someone knows what Newmar is as a name is spelled, then let us know. I thought it was interesting, though, that she like used like the middle name, but she still said Jules and not July. And I was like, I wonder if everyone's forgotten that that's her real full name.
Then I made a good point about that.
Mm-hmm.
Which was...
You can...
I'm losing my voice.
Okay. Victoria's good point is, if I was Bill Kendall's daughter, given his marriage history, I would want to do everything I could to forget that I was also named after a month, because it's creepy. So I would distance myself from that as far as possible.
What do you think her reaction was when she was old enough to really think about the fact that she was named after a month?
And I was like, it probably
I would
explains...
run away from home too.
Yeah, I was like, I would also run away. Probably explains a lot of the emotional trauma that Jules has regarding her parents. So they go, they look around. Connie's like, it was nice of Whit to let me borrow his car. I was like, yeah, it certainly was, given how recently you drove it through your garage door. They mentioned Renee by name in an album.
Which was weird.
Yeah, they're like, it's Renee Carter.
You know what I think happened is this was originally going to be an OEC episode, but then they made a normal one and they forgot to change that.
I don't think so.
It was a joke, Devin.
Okay, sorry.
You ruined it.
I'm sorry.
You should be.
Okay, Buck time. So,
Buck.
It's Buck time.
Devin and I both have similar opinions on this, so I'll just let him go over everything.
So this episode was kind of interesting. So I kind of, in Friend or Foe, I purposefully, like, led up to the discussion of this one.
Yeah, I was thinking, what are you doing? But
I was seeding the discussion of this one.
You made it seem like you predicted things, but you really didn't. You
Sneaky.
cheated.
Yeah, you've never done that.
I haven't. I write down all my predictions if I'm going to do stuff like that, and then I just recite them so I don't elaborate.
Okay, so the structure of this episode...
I already thought Maury was evil before I listened to Key Suspect.
The structure of this episode... I'll take this probably vibrating into the mic.
Probably.
The structure of this episode is interesting because the first half is like, okay, we're learning to drive, and the second half is like, everyone is running away now.
Everyone.
And that's kind of weird because, as I said before, it's like, oh, Buck and Jules are sort of in similar situations, but with opposite dispositions, and normally it's like Jules is the one in trouble, and then Buck's like, oh, here's what you need to do, and then he pulls her out of it. And it wasn't so simple this time as a reversal where it's like, okay, now Buck's gone off the deep end and Jules needs to pull him out. It's like Jules messes up and then Buck messes up kind of more but kind of less, and then Jules comes back and then Buck comes back, and then everything is instantaneously resolved. And there certainly was a lot of good stuff here. Like, I thought the exact same thing as Eugene, and I was really, really, really glad that Eugene had the exact same perspective as we both did on Immediately, which is, it's a really...
We've already talked about this a bit, by the way.
It was a really good thing that Buck was like, hey, I can express my emotions here, even if I'm expressing negative emotions. The fact that he finally feels safe enough with them to do that is a really positive thing. And I was so glad that Eugene recognized that and the significance of that for Buck's character. But what I'm really curious about, and I feel is maybe kind of unresolved here, and maybe you have more thoughts about it, is what exactly it was that hit a nerve with Buck here specifically. Because this isn't the first time he's messed up and had to be punished by Eugene and Katrina. So what is it about this time that made him snap? Is it because he's been slowly becoming more and more comfortable with Eugene and Katrina, so he felt safe enough to be, like, let his emotions out without fear of being taken away? Because that seems unlikely, given his reaction right after was like, I need to go now. And the fact that he'd already seen his social worker's card on the table, and that made him think he was on thin ice and he might not be able to stay there anymore. So he shouldn't have gone into that being like, uncomfortable enough to yell at them. My inclination is between two things. One is that there was some specific word trigger in here for him. Like when Eugene called Buck ignorant, like even though Eugene didn't mean it like that, obviously, the way Buck repeated it back made me think like, maybe that specific word is like something that people like Mr. Skint used to use to put him down, and it like was like flashback, and that like really cut him deep
like some really specific thing that happened here that didn't happen before. And I figured we'd get later explanation on why he went off like that, but we didn't really. My other guess was because he got in trouble for trying to help Jules, and then he was being prevented from trying to do something nice for Katrina. And this was all because they believed he couldn't do something he very much well could do, because they had no idea how well he could do it. And all that just pounded into him how much they didn't know him or his past or what he can do, or them thinking that they know what's best for him when they don't know what he can do and stuff like that. And he just felt tired of having to be so performative, of putting on a show to bring it back to the exchange and Connie the counselor. Just so that having to be performative just so he can give Eugene and Katrina the person that he thinks they want him to be. And when Buck talks to Jules about it, it makes it seem like it's that latter one. But I wish we'd have more elaboration on those motivations. I feel like it'll become clearer with time as we see continued future development.
Okay, I think I have a couple ideas.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of everything that you just said, and there probably were some triggers in there. But it's also the fact that, like, he was trying to do something, he wanted to do something nice for Katrina that he was probably planning for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that's, like, all taken away from him, and he was, like, really proud of himself for getting his license, and everyone else was proud of him and stuff, and they were going to have, like, a little mini celebration. And he was, like, in a really good mood, and it sucks so much when you're, like, in a really good mood, and then something really bad happens.
Especially just, because you're trying to help someone.
Instantly drags you down, especially when you're trying to help someone. And then add on top of that the fact that he has a good idea where Jules is, but he's not sure. For all he knows, he could be wrong about where Jules is, and she could be gone, and he's, like, super worried about her. So he's, like, really stressed out, and he just needs, like, a little bit of normalcy. So, like, when you're already having a terrible day and you have plans, and I know, like, I hate it when my plans are messed up, because it, like, makes me emotional and upset and anxious and stuff. So, like, having, like, all this bad stuff is happening and he's losing control, you need, like, one little iota of control. Yeah. So he's like, I'm gonna go to Connellsville, I'm gonna get a puppy. His license is taken away from him. So then, on top of all that, I feel like it'd just be emotionally difficult to handle, and he usually has a lot more composure than this, but Jules is also missing, and Jules is, like, his best friend, and he really likes her and stuff, platonically and romantically, and he just, like, doesn't really know what to do. And they also kind of make it sound like he might be grounded or something like that, so he has to sneak out to be able to go find Jules and stuff, and he'll probably get in even more trouble for doing that. And he said he doesn't care about his birthday, but I still feel like it would have been that he might have secretly had a little bit of hope that he could have done something nice with Eugene and Katrina. Yeah. Maybe he didn't really care that much, but then Eugene brings it up earlier that day. Yeah. And in a way that kind of made it sound like they were planning something, but then it got ruined, so that is also taken away from him. So, like, all that culminating together, I feel like would be hard for one person to handle in one day. What do you think?
It's a very good point, Victoria.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my first thought, as soon as he gave
also, like, all these memories coming back with Mr. Skint because of his license.
As soon as the envelope he gives to Jules, I was like, it's a letter to give to
Eugene. I was like, it's money.
I was like, it's a letter that's saying goodbye to Eugene and Katrina. I was like, I can't believe he's running away. I'm gonna die.
I'm gonna die. There's like a million E's.
That's the 4.
Yeah.
So yeah,
4 million.
Like I said, I was so glad that Eugene was able to recognize, like, the importance of Buck feeling safe and vulnerable enough to lash out for the first time at them. I've talked about it before with Kelly and her behavior in the Imagination Station Revisited, and how that contrasts with most other kids in Odyssey, because growing up in an abusive household makes her obey instantly, no questions asked, just do it. Otherwise something bad is going to happen. Super common thing for kids in abusive situations. And we've seen the same thing with Buck for such a long time, how he doesn't want to call him on a first name basis or, like, anything that's informal. He's, like, always very apologetic, wants to help out, extremely giving of himself because he feels like that's what he needs to do to earn his keep and to just, maintain status quo. He doesn't feel like there's any leniency for him.
Katrina has that one line. It's like, there's nothing you need to do to earn our love and nothing you can do to take it away. And I feel like he isn't really to the point where he can completely accept that yet.
I really like the thing in the Old Tricks.
Yeah, that line is from Old Tricks.
I really like the thing with Eugene where he was caught in this balance where he's like, I purposefully told Buck I didn't need his help with this stuff because I didn't want him to feel like he needed to earn it. But then in doing so, he accidentally made it seem like he didn't need Buck's help and like it wasn't necessary. And so there was like a balance to that. It wasn't just one side, which I like too. So yeah, we've seen the same thing with Buck for a long time. So it's heartbreakingly sweet to know that he's reaching the point where he's able to, talk to Eugene and Katrina, and he still came back. He didn't end up running away. Like even after that, and he saw the social workers come on the table, he was so scared, but he went to Connellsville, got the puppy, and then came back. He could have just taken off. The shell that Mr. Skint built around him is finally chipping away. I'm really happy. And yeah, it was nice to see finally things flipped where Jules wasn't the one as much in trouble. It wasn't the way I pictured it to be exactly, because it wasn't really like Jules was teaching something to Buck in the process. But, it was Buck who threw himself out in a much worse situation. And, it's nice to see him mess up like that and be able to see the forgiveness that he receives, for him to be able to see the forgiveness he receives in a much more controlled and low stakes environment than it was in like Green Ring Conspiracy, Ties of Bond, where the police don't have to be involved in the process.
For someone like so subdued, it's strange to think about what an extreme character Buck is, because when he does something, he kind of goes all out on it. Like think about in Old Tricks when he was like, I'm willing to go to jail just to get you this job and stuff like that. And Buck is such a good character. Buck is a really, really good character. I really love him. I love this episode. This episode was actually my favorite of the album.
Felt like
5 stars.
It felt to me like this episode, the pacing was kind of weird because of like the first half is driving and then the second half starts out like, oh, it's going to be like Jules ran away, but then no, it's Buck ran away instead. Technically they both ran away and then they both come back and then everything's fine.
It was a little weird, but I can overlook that because I really liked it.
I was listening to it twice and it seems
Devin and I were walking around and I was just like, Buck is gone, and then Buck's like, hey guys, I was like, Buck is back. Like literally in that time span. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, it seemed like a quick resolution, which Find a Penny had as well too. It has the same sort of thing
feel like
in terms
I have more
of weird
issues
structuring and
with
pacing.
Find a Penny because whereas To Find a Penny was like government operation and drug cartel, so it was like really big scale. This was like 2 kids.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
who were actually pretty responsible.
The resolution,
so they came back.
The resolution though of Find a Penny was like 2/3 to half of an episode, whereas the resolution for this is like 3 minutes. Yeah,
but that was a 2-parter.
Well, yeah, but
it had the time to build up and build down.
Still, it was bigger, but it did give a lot more time to resolution than this one did.
Penny's in a pool, and the guy's like, hey, it's you. I was looking for you for like 2 seconds. Thanks for appearing. And the woman's like, I'm on a helicopter, and it ends. And I'm like, what was that? So.
Okay, so we should give ratings, because then that's the perfect segue into album review.
Yep.
So you said 5 for this one?
5 stars. I feel like with time I might give it something lower because of the quick resolution, but that's not today.
I'm going to give this one 4.7.
I'm proud of my son.
My
puppy got a puppy.
Multiple homages to License to Drive, which I enjoyed. Lots of old references. Buck and Jules' development. Buck, just, Buck finally having his moment where he reaches the point after many albums that he's like, yes, I messed up and I waited for the punishment and it didn't come. It's like, okay, obviously there were consequences, but he's like, okay, I'm forgiven this. I messed up and still the world is going to keep on turning.
He got so emotional when he realized they were throwing him a birthday party, and I was like, oh my gosh. She was like, I've never had a party before, and I was like, you sweet child. He got Katrina a present on his own birthday. Oh my gosh. This boy will be the death of me.
Yeah. So, yep, that's that. And then we should talk about album 63 as a whole now, and we'll turn you over to that right now. So, time to talk about album 63 as a whole, Victoria. All these 6 episodes.
Rank time.
Up in the air.
Rank time.
Okay.
What do you rank it?
So,
album as a whole.
Well, that comes at the end.
What would you rank the episodes? What order?
We need to think over the episodes one by one.
Fine.
Reminisce about them. Find a penny. There was one thing that stuck out to me that I wanted to mention, which is right at the beginning of the episode. The last thing Connie says before Wooten first bursts in the door at the top of the episode is another drop in this massive pool now of uncertainty that she's been putting forth for seasons and seasons about her relationships with both Penny and Wooten now that they're married. These little lines have been piling up for a long time, starting ever since like Penny first met Wooten in the Green Ring Conspiracy. And ever since they were dating and engaged and stuff like that, I guess they never were dating, they just went right to engaged, basically. All this stuff about Penny being like, what's going to happen? Am I going to be all alone in life again? They're going to leave me,
Connie
and then
had that
everything's going to be
outburst
depressing.
on Candid Conversations, and last time she did that was right after Mitch died. So,
no, she did it in Inspiration Station.
Oh yeah, never mind.
She's had a lot of outbursts.
Yeah, that's her outlet. This is where I go to yell.
It's called Candid Conversations,
and
Victoria.
That's where Connie goes to yell.
Connie brings the candid, brings the candor.
Connie the Conqueror.
Yeah, Connie the Conqueror. So yeah, Connie's had all this stuff building up, and the fact that now that they're married and we still have little lines like this makes me think that there is still that we're still building up to something, some significant turning point in Connie's development, either socially or romantically. Did
you write down a question about Connie's romantic life? Yes. We did. Okay.
Also, and they did actually mention this in part 2, but they mentioned in part 1, in Paris, when they're going up to Eiffel Tower with Ernest and stuff in the original flashback with the postcard, Ernest is like, make sure that he's like, it's going to be cold on the top, so make sure that you bring your coats and your hats with you when we go up. And I was like, you want a Penny to wear the hat so we could look for an opportunity to swipe it. But I guess he didn't get it. And then in part 2, Penny's like, so that's why, one of the two of them was like, that's why they kept on telling, Penny's like, that's why they telling me to bring my hat everywhere, even when it was 80 degrees outside.
I went back during this album and I re-listened to Fathers and Sons. And in that episode, Jason gets a postcard from Penny. Mm-hmm. And it's the one about the lady on the plane.
Yeah, Francine.
And then he was just, and what's like, oh, did you get a postcard from Penny? He's like, yeah. And Jason's like, ha ha ha, something about her meeting a nice hat lady on the plane who made her a hat. And he's like, ha ha ha, that's so nice. And I was like, I was like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah. And then, like I just said,
okay. Wooten has a nice singing voice, and I think it's really sweet of him to sing a song for Penny. I still think Victoria Jameson heard the song. I
angry about the lack of water.
I'm still kind of upset about the lack of water.
Kind of.
I'm not furious anymore. I've kind of gotten over that because I really like Jess's singing voice. Mm-hmm. Even as Wooten, he's still a really good singer.
Yeah.
And there are some notes when Wooten's singing. I'm like, oh, that's a nice note. I don't know if that's just me. But...
Oh, yeah.
And... what was I gonna say? I have a feeling that Victoria might be married by this point, though, because it's been a while.
Probably.
So...
especially because before it was like, we're gonna get married because of a business deal. So I imagine it wouldn't take long for her dad to, like, find someone else to try and attach to. Granted...
yeah. I don't think her dad knew about the business deal, though. So.
Well, no, he was trying to get him to marry. Oh wait, yeah, because it was just Winston. You're right. I was gonna say that something about I don't know.
I like to think that the reason they didn't sing with water was a lot like Deadpool, where they didn't have the budget to have guns and swords in the last fight. So then they're like, oops, we forgot them in the plot.
Oh,
so that
you mean in like an out of narrative perspective?
Yeah, out of narrative, like kind of influencing the actual narrative.
Yeah.
So I like to think that with the water, they're just like, oh, we had the water, but then we lost it for reasons or something like that.
Oh no, it's so hard to get a bowl of water.
It needs to be a gold-plated bowl, and they left them at home.
That's true.
So
It's not actually water, it's actually wheatgrass juice that they need.
Well, what show was that?
No, that was it was like the Backstreet Boys or something like that started
that was a
It's been
show.
referenced on a lot of shows, yeah.
I watched a show, and they were like, they had singers, and they were like really high profile, and they're like, get us wheatgrass juice.
I remember,
but
that specifically was a reference to an identical situation with like a boy band.
So that wasn't actually a real show. I remember it was a reality show, so it might have all been fake.
Oh.
I don't know what show that was, though.
I remember. I do remember that. I thought it was like a fictional show.
No, it could have been. I don't know.
Or maybe they were copycatting.
They were probably lots of reality shows are fake.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
It's I mentioned this Crash Course talking about pacing. It's interesting to me. It takes the first
Mystery Diners.
two. What's his name? Chris something?
Something Styles.
Chris Styles?
No.
Something Styles. Mystery Diners. It's interesting to me that it takes
Charles Styles, Mystery Diners.
It takes the first 2/3 of the whole two-parter before we finally learn the plot of what is going on. It's like we have the first act, and then we have more at the second first act, and then we have the second act.
But it works well.
It does, yeah. It's just interesting that like the whole victimizers and the hat and the stole penny and all that stuff.
Victimizers is still a terrible name.
It's not often you see a story that has such a long / multiple first acts before the actual story drops. These episodes have such a unique structure to them that also carries into the feel and the genre of the episodes, as we said, because at first it's like romance, comedy, slice of life, kind of a little bit of mystery to it, and then it's like action, adventure, international crime.
But I like that kind of storytelling where you're like,
it was really...
something seemed disjointed, but then you actually realize, like, oh, these are really important, and then it makes you like go and listen or watch everything again.
The unique structure affects the feel and the genre of the episodes as they progress and it develops, but it's all really well done, and it feels smooth when it could have very easily be rocky and jarring the way it was done. And I still think it's hilarious that Jason figured out the acronym thing, because it's like, he learned his lesson, he knows what to do, it's not going to get him again. Got him, fool me once. Fool me once, Dad. Shame on me.
Fool me twice.
What is the line? I can't remember now.
I don't know. What line from what?
From The Office.
I don't know what line.
It was Michael was like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, you fooled me again. Don't do that.
That's me. Okay. Find a Pent, part 1. Okay, friend or foe?
So Find a Penny, parts 1 and 2, overall, excellent episodes, fantastic season opener. They did a great job at combining like a whole bunch of different genres. Kathy did an excellent job with it. It was a great way to bring Penny Wooten back, and even though at first it was like, oh, this is going to be weird and cliche because we've already had like memory loss, stuff like that. It was it was like could not have been more different than the Eugene's Return trilogy.
It was really good, and Wooten actually remembered everything, unlike Eugene.
Yeah.
Eugene remembered everything eventually.
It was sweet, and it was funny, and the foreshadowing was incredible. He's the neat one, and she is the messy one. No, Victoria, they're both the messy ones.
They're both the messy
ones. Friend or foe. The first of 2 Buck Jules episodes in this album.
Yeah.
So, Valerie and Jules, and then also Buck and Connie.
Was Legend the last episode?
Legacy
the last one before this album started? Okay. Yeah, I'll just bring it up again. It's really weird that their relationship just escalated so quickly and then just went back to normal.
I told you, Victoria. Musical theater.
It was weird. It was weird. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention. In the review of Crash Course, there's that one part where Jules was talking,
Yeah.
and she, like, slipped into the conversation that Buck was cute, and then Buck was just, like, talking. He was like, wait, did you say I was cute? And then she keeps on talking about something else, and I was like, that was perfect. See, that is how I wish they handled their relationship instead of whatever was going on in Legacy.
Whatever love potion number 9 that was, yeah.
That was love potion number 9. It didn't make any sense. It just... What was that? The way they did it in Crash Course. This is why Kathy has to write the romances, because everyone else does it wrong. Which I think we can both agree.
Yes.
She writes them better than anyone else, and I'm sorry if that makes it seem like she's being, like, trapped into a certain type of episode, because it kind of does, but she does it so much better than everyone else does.
So... Friend or foe? Under the Influence Part 3.
Buck was good. Good Buck.
As always.
Good boy Buck.
Good boyo.
Good boyo. My son. Good child.
He's a soft boy.
Soft boy.
A sad boy.
I love him.
His representational color is gray, Victoria.
It's a beluga whale.
A beluga whale?
A beluga whale? What does that mean? I think it means he couldn't come up with anything. I'm so glad that was the next line. Eugene is more observant than we thought he would be originally when it comes to Buck. Okay, why did they not let Eugene have a kid originally? It would change his character. They ended up doing it anyways.
Okay, but you know what? I was thinking about this yesterday.
I was thinking about it. There's a difference between having a baby and having a teenager, because he basically already has like a bunch of teenagers with him. Yeah. Still, he still has to look after Buck. It's the same thing, kind of.
I really like, though...
the only difference is they don't have to wait, like, 14 years for the child to grow up.
The longest gestation period of any animal.
It would be like Renesmee in Twilight with Odyssey timelines, how everyone stays the same, and then Buck is like... Baby Buck turns 16 in like a week.
The thing about Eugene and Katrine having Buck, I mean, besides the fact that it's like, oh, there's all their past in the Green Room conspiracy, and then Buck has to overcome all of his trauma with Mr. Skin.
If they actually were able to have a kid and Buck had like a baby sibling. Oh my gosh.
The point is, for Eugene specifically, so much of his character early on was tied into like his family relations. The fact that, you know, he was adopted, he was a foster child, he lost his parents, and he had to go through all this stuff without his family. And even in The Chosen One, where it wasn't about his family specifically, they brought him in to talk to Kelly about it, to talk about what it means to be adopted, to be a foster child, and the significance of that. So to me, the idea that Eugene now gets to pass on that wisdom and those experiences to a child of his who is also adopted, that he's also a foster parent to, is like, it really means a lot.
My brain broke. I can't remember what Buck's last name is, and I'm in disgrace.
Oliver?
Thank you.
Like Oliver Twist.
That probably is why they.
That is why, yeah.
I am actually going to cry if they legally adopt him and his last name changes to Meltzner. I am actually going to cry if that happens. What about you?
I mean, it doesn't roll off the tongue as well as Buck Oliver, but...
Yeah, but, like, Buck Meltzner, didn't think about that. Buck Meltzner.
It's funny because Buck is such a... It's such a, like, tough homeboy name, and Meltzner's not.
It's, like, so intellectual.
Buck Meltzner is a weird-sounding name, I have to say. But you know what? I'll get over it for him.
Yeah, for his happiness.
Exactly, because that's the most important thing.
It is.
So, friend or foe?
It was a good episode. I liked it.
Yeah,
I think it was more original than people led me to believe before.
I feel like, okay, so Jules' stuff, like, I feel like the end of this episode made it seem like the finale was really gonna, like, bring to resolution what was going on with Jules at the end of this, where she's like, I don't have any friends, no one's looking out for me, but then the ending didn't even really focus on her as much as it did on Buck.
Yeah, but
so it felt like that stuff was really unresolved.
On Buck more, but we've been getting so much Jules stuff, like you said, and this was finally Buck. And then, like, a small thing in that was, like, Buck gave her money. I still think she might not know that Buck reduced her debt.
Probably not.
So here she directly sees him giving her stuff and, like, directly supporting her when no one else will. and then Connie being like really worried about her, and then like all these people trying to find her, and she sees like up front that all these people really care about her.
I guess so.
I feel like it was kind of
in terms of
subtextually,
in terms of explicit stuff, it's like, oh, there was stuff for Jules, but it didn't seem the stuff for Jules wasn't different than every other Jules episode where she messes up and then gets help. Like, it didn't seem like it was especially in resolution of the unresolved stuff from an earlier episode. It just seemed like normal Jules stuff. So there is like subtextual stuff you could draw from that, but I feel like it should have been more if you wanted to like kind of bring that arc to a close before the end of the season. It just seemed like she'd reached like this high point of distress and anger, and then it just kind of wasn't mentioned, wasn't any indication of it in
When was the last time characters have gone on an Imagination Station adventure?
Including AIOC?
Yeah, but I also want, like, mainly just these albums. Not AIOC's.
Well, let's see. Previous to this album, Slipped Away, Unfair Game, Perfect Testimony, One More Name, Legacy, Grass is Always Greener, Fathers and Sons, No Friend Like an Old Friend, Connie the Counselor, Very Bassett Wedding, Key Suspect, Old Tricks, Parker President, Feud of Mason County. Now we're back into 2016 AOC. Untack the Halls, Where Your Heart Is?
Not including OAC.
Or sorry, Where Your Treasure Is. So if we're not including that outright, then Between the Lines, Case of the Ballcap Hero, No Cause for Concern, Cycle of Fear.
Oh my gosh.
Words from the Wise. Let's Get Together.
It's like pre-album 5 era. What is this?
Out of the Woods, Dinner Role Models, Big Commitment, Playing the Predictable, First Things First. I'm not 100% remembering all of these as I'm going through it quickly, so if I'm missing anything,
no, I think you are.
Okay, we are now back, into Ties That Bind.
Oh my gosh. Ties That Bind, there was Olivia's Adventure, but we never saw it, so it doesn't count.
Which came out 3 years ago. And then now we're back into album 57, which would put us at the beginning of that, maybe. Run After Me, More Than Feeling. Servant Is Listening, I guess.
So the
which is the first episode
we ever reviewed. Oh my gosh.
That's not including AIOC, which is half of the episodes that come out, in fairness.
Yeah, but still.
That's impressive. Good catch, Victoria.
Jeez. I want Buck and Jules to go on an adventure in the Imagination Station.
But have either of them been in it before?
I doubt it. Maybe off screen. We'll never see it, though, because apparently it doesn't exist anymore.
I feel like there's a reference to Jules being in the Imagination Station.
This means that there's almost been as many Inspiration Station adventures as there have been Imagination Station adventures post-hiatus, which is terrible.
Not at all.
You can't say that for sure. Give me a list.
Yes, I can.
I know, but it feels like there's been more.
So, Have a Heart, Dion.
My baby boy.
And Buddy. And Zoe.
You hate Buddy so much more than me.
I don't like him.
I don't hate him.
Zoe wasn't great either.
Okay, the other episode he was in, was a good testimony.
Perfect Testimony.
Perfect Testimony. Has he only been in 3 episodes?
Yes.
Okay, so have something biblical proportions. A predicament of biblical proportions. Did not like him in that one. Good testimony. Perfect Testimony. I actually liked him in that one. This one, I also liked him in. So he is 2 for 3 for me. Devin does not like him at all.
He's 0 for 3 for me, so. Not a fan of the Budster, Buddy Norman.
Not a fan of Budwise.
No. Bud Light.
Bud Unwise. Budweiser.
I don't mind Zoe, but in this episode it was like, girl, you need to slow your roll.
Zoe is I don't know, I think she's a lot like Rita Skeeter from Harry Potter, where she's just very focused on the story and won't get it, no matter who it hurts. I feel like she needs to take a lesson from Lucy Cunningham Schultz and McGerk, and just Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I feel like there needs to be an episode where Zoe just
Have a Heart was terribly
gets
emotional.
her stuff dealt with.
It was terribly emotional and beautiful, and also Buddy was there. The stuff with Dion...
And Kermit was there.
Yeah, and not the Geico gecko. He did not help you save 15% or more on car insurance in 15 minutes. So...
I don't.
Okay.
It was a really good episode in my opinion.
Oh, I didn't know if you were trying to signal me to something with that tap, or if you were just.
Oh
tapping
no, I'm
your
just
head.
hitting the couch.
Okay, good. Overall, yeah, it was a great episode. There was all these things that tried to detract from it. They weren't enough to make it a bad episode, fortunately, because the rest of it was just so good. But they tried. They really did.
To make it a bad episode?
Yeah. The frog scene just went on for so long. It was such a long scene, Victoria.
It was a long scene.
It was like 5 minutes with
Yep.
Kermit and the lizard.
Yep. It was.
But it was very emotional, and it was nice to see Dion develop, especially after the time that Buck put into trying to help him.
Dion is another good boy.
BTV Revenge.
I want Buck and Dion to interact now.
Yeah, I know. I said that before.
I feel like I'll lose my voice if I say anything else about this one.
Monte Cristo.
Not terrible.
As BTV goes,
Didn't hate it.
it was pretty decent BTV. Bernard's still not there. Still not the same as it was before, but obviously it's not going to be. It was a lot closer, way closer to regular BTV in feel and structure than it had been previously, with To Tell the Truth.
Good BTV episode. Bad Monte Cristo adaptation.
So yeah, it is what it is. And then Crash Course, which was like all the Buck feels.
Good stuff.
All the Buck feels
stuff.
came. We got all these references to like License to Drive, and it was really funny. I thought this was going to be about like, here's what I imagined it was going to be at like after 60 seconds of the episode.
I thought the entire episode was just going to be License to Drive rehashing, and they were going to get their licenses at the ending. Maybe Buck wasn't going to get his, and Jules was going to get hers, and it was going to be like, ooh, that was a twist.
I thought what was going to happen is Eugene's teaching...
I didn't think any of that
I thought
stuff
Eugene's going to teach Buck how to
happened.
drive, and Connie's going to teach Jules how to drive, but everyone's having so much trouble with it because their teaching styles just aren't working for
Oh,
them.
they should try
And then they have to switch.
Ah,
and I thought
that'd be
Eugene was
good.
going to have to teach Jules how to drive, and Connie would have to teach Buck how to
We haven't
drive.
gotten, like, any Eugene-Jules interaction.
Yeah.
And we barely get... I live
Like
for
Connie and
interactions
Buck.
between Connie and Buck.
That's why I was
Connie's
telling
basically
you.
like an aunt.
That's
to
why I
Buck,
was telling
which
you,
is
Victoria, that
great.
surely Connie had told Buck about Eugene's driving past. There's no way Connie didn't
Which
tell Buck
I
about
would
that.
think if it weren't for his apparent obliviousness at
Well,
talking about it.
here's the thing, though. As we've learned from that episode, Buck is good at faking obliviousness.
True. I don't know.
Eugene's like, I'm amazing at driving. And Buck is like, yes, you are. And also, I don't know how to drive. See?
He like, do you think he first started off his thing by doing a Connie intro and we just didn't see it? He's like, this is the key.
No,
and
he
Buck's
starts...
like, oh my
No,
gosh.
he started at the very beginning. A very good place to start. It took me a while after we first heard that episode before I realized it was a Sound of Music reference.
Same.
Yeah, I imagined from the beginning of that episode that it was going to be like a swapperoo thing, and it's like, oh, their working styles aren't working for each other teaching, so they need to
really
like
enjoyed that as an episode
cross
too,
over.
but I'm happy that's what we
And
got.
then it was like, nope, sniped ya. It's not actually sniped ya. It's not actually a driving episode. It's actually everyone runs away and we cry
actually-
episode.
Driving you with feels.
Yeah. So yeah, Buck is like, hey,
It's
I'm
not
gonna yell
car
at-
driven, it's emotionally
yeah.
driven.
it's character driven.
Yeah. What I live for.
Buck is like, you guys don't know what's best for me. Oh no, I've destroyed my life now. And then Eugene's like, yay. Eugene yelled at me. And Connie's like, if you want a kid that yells at you.
Buck yelled at you. Oh
Connie's
yeah, that was
like,
funny.
yeah, she's like,
let's trade. And Devin's like, this is what I thought the plot was going to be. I can't laugh. I'm too hungry. It makes my stomach hurt.
We're almost done. Yeah, and then it was like, oh, run away, come back. I like how Jules comes over. She's like, I'll help you go find Buck. And then, like, he walks in. He's like, hey, everyone. She's like, oh. And he's like, I'll help you find Jules. And she's like, I'm right here. And he's like, oh.
And they're like, high five. Yeah.
Like, okay, yay, we did it. The end. But they got a puppy. Buck is...
The puppy sound effects were so great.
Buck is increasingly emotionally vulnerable to Eugene and Katrina. They know
And
how to
there's a
drive.
Puppy.
They both turned 16 now.
What if the puppy dies?
You shut your mouth.
Oh, no. The reason they got rid of Kitty is because it was too much effort for them to do all the sound effects for dogs.
I assume so.
No, that's what they said.
They said that, okay, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Crash Course.
That's the
It was kind of like weird and rushed in structure, but the individual pieces were all really good. They fit together pretty weirdly.
Order of your favorite episodes.
Okay.
And we're gonna do number review for the album.
Find a Penny, Crash Course. I'm sorry, I don't even remember what I rated them. It's only been like 2 hours. Find a Penny, Crash Course.
I think you usually give higher reviews on all of them than me.
Usually, I'm trying to remember. What did I put higher for? Friend or foe or Have a Heart? I'll go Find a Penny, Crash Course,
no,
Have a Heart.
Have a Heart you gave like a low review because you didn't like all this stuff. And
It wasn't really low.
it was way lower than mine.
Find a Penny,
I'm
Crash
so
Course,
hungry.
Have a Heart, Friend or Foe, BTV-Revenge.
Okay, I'm gonna go Crash Course, Find a Penny, Friend or Foe, Have a Heart, BTV Revenge.
Sorry, what was that? Repeat.
Crash Course, Find a Penny, Friend or Foe, Have a Heart, BTV Revenge.
Okay.
Now make me dinner.
Okay, so album 63. We're done, Victoria.
Yeah.
Another
Wait,
season
number
done.
review. Album, number review.
Oh yeah, overall album.
I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
This album was really good. Kathy opened it and closed it out
With a
phenomenally.
bang.
We had no Maury in this episode. We thought Maury in this album.
Okay, put
It's
up the thing. Put
yeah,
the thing.
here's the thing Victoria made again.
I thought Crash Course was gonna be about Maury. Nope.
We thought Friend or Foe originally was going to be the Maury one, because I guess they must have
And
moved
then it was
it.
gonna be Friend or
When
Foe,
we
and then I
first-
thought it was gonna be Have a Heart, and then I thought it was gonna be Crash Course.
When we first did the predictions for this album, I assume they must have changed the description. The original description said there was something about like Matthew and Emily fighting with each other, and we were like, oh, Maury is using his blackmail stuff to sabotage them and drive them apart. And so we're like, oh, Friend or
When
Foe,
does the
that
next
makes
album
perfect
come out?
sense.
I need the Maury episodes.
It'll be spring, so probably January it'll start on the OAC.
Oh, I can't wait that
So that's that. So
long. I need more.
yeah,
in
so-
my life.
there was no Maury in it, but we had 2 Buck and Jules episodes.
No Maury.
We had an
0
amazing,
out of 5.
amazing, exciting romantic comedy, slice of life action adventure mystery 2-parter with Penny and Wooten
There's
that
so many good
continued
ships
their
in the show right
relationship arc.
What do you think?
Yeah, Dion's development stuff was great, and we got a BTV that was actually BTV instead of To Tell the Truth.
Devin, do you ship Dion and Buddy?
Dion and Buddy? No.
That's the right answer.
No,
They would-
remember? I was milling on like Buck and Dion.
Oh. Way more than Jules and Buck?
I don't know. Probably more Jules Buck,
I
but
don't ship Dion with anyone, personally.
I thought there were intriguing elements to Buck and Dion.
I still am, like, very resolute, though, on Butch and Sam.
Obviously.
That, yes. And also, Edwin and Shakespeare.
Yeah, it's kind of canon. So album overall, I'm gonna give this one 4.4.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Yeah, that's
we
it.
have to leave
That's it
because
for
I'm
that.
hungry.
the next episode, what are we doing, Victoria?
was Sperry, McGerk, and the Other Woman.
Yes. Yeah, The Legend of Sperry McGerk, which is the August AIOC episode, and The Other Woman.
From album 28 Coming Home.
Yes.
Give me
Welcome home.
food.
So, until then, thank you for joining us on our side of YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also
And I'm
known as
hungry.
Leonard Meltzner. And you've been watching the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Goodbye.
This is a good album. Bye.